Chairman, this bill is an outgrowth of our efforts last year to address some of the inequities in the sales tax code. And then over the course of session, leading up to veto session, I know you and I talked about this, but I really began to feel that the issue was much larger than what we were able to address in the bill that was vetoed for other reasons last year. So I felt that having just come off of the rewrite of the Missouri Criminal Code, what we really needed was to do the same kind of an overhaul with the Missouri Tax Code. Very specifically with this bill, what we start out with is the elimination of the Office of Taxpayer Ombudsman, which currently is housed in the Department of Revenue. I don't know who the Taxpayer Ombudsman is. I don't know if citizens do, but that individual reports to the Department of Revenue. This act would create, in lieu of that, the Office of Taxpayer Advocate, get them out of the Department of Revenue and house them in the Office of Administration. They would not report to them, they'd be housed there. The second thing that it does is it amends the current Missouri Taxpayer Bill of Rights to include, and it's really sad that we even have to do this, but to include a right to fair and consistent application of Missouri tax laws. The third part of the bill deals with what I just described about the State Tax Study Commission. And then the last part deals with something that you and I both worked on, and that would require the promulgation of a rule by the department if there's been a change in the interpretation of sales tax law that modifies items of personal property or service that are taxable, rather than just notifying them by audit, essentially.
I think it's fair to say that we need to look at our tax code overall. I think we can all agree on that. And once we pass this bill and we have some experts look at it, then we look at some facts and really decide where we need to go as tax policy. Because I think right now, everybody's throwing out ideas that they think is best for the state. But without looking at where we're going and where we've been, we're going to keep going down a path of inconsistent tax policy.
I want to say I really appreciate the committee taking the time, going around the state, and really looking at the issue over the interim, and talking to the constituencies and a lot of our members. And I think that the committee, it was reflective in the report, really heard what we've been hearing a lot, and that there's a lot of inconsistency in the application of the tax law. And that really keeps businesses from being able to plan for the future. And it's definitely supportive overall of the bill, and really taking a look at comprehensive tax code and what we can do to make Missouri more competitive in that structure.
We had a constituent from my district come up to testify last year. It was a gymnastics studio. They were collecting sales tax on their gym memberships, but they were not collecting sales tax on lessons for the children or students. And when they were audited, they were told that they had to pay the sales tax for that. And then they were said, hey, you have back taxes. They went back 3 years. It was a rather large bill. And so we coined a term, notification by audit. So they were never notified that they were supposed to be collecting on the lessons. In fact, I believe that there are gymnastic studios and a number of other places still in Missouri today that are not collecting sales tax because they just don't know it. So notification, this bill would just say, hey, if the Department of Revenue fails to notify a business that they have changed the interpretation because of a court ruling, because of an interpretation of the rules, whatever, then they can't go after back taxes. And we just think it's a fair way to do business.
TJ Rehak, which is a constituent of Senator Kraus, is a member of ours and kind of became the poster child of this issue. But just recalling a couple of instances you heard over the interim, where you had businesses who had a letter from the department saying that they did know the tax, and then they had the auditor saying they did, should be collecting the tax. So, we just appreciate this piece of legislation, and I think it'll move Missouri forward in a lot of ways, so thank you.
Really what we're trying to do is not penalize headquarters being located in the state of Missouri. Because what happens is the out-of-state tax in the state of Missouri would be taxed here. So we get incentives for corporations that have headquarters in Missouri to move outside of Missouri because they wouldn't be taxed on anything that's outside of Missouri if they were outside of Missouri, but their headquarters is here, so they're taxed on all of it. So this is what that single sales factor will do, is benefit those businesses and help keep them here in their headquarters here.
We'd like to go on record in support of Senate Bill 19. As you just heard in the last testimony, we've had two options that gave the availability to apportion income so that multi-state companies don't pay double taxes as they allocate their income across their different states. Back in 2012, the idea to do a third option came out of our tax council, and so we brought that forward. We appreciate the senators and the Senate and House for supporting that. I will tell you, if you look at the legislation, all we did was, when we drafted, is take the previous apportionment method and put it in a law as a second option and just change the calculation. So as you heard, the Department of Revenue has always allowed all businesses to use the original apportionment method, and nothing really changed except how you calculated your percentage of allocation. And so their interpretation, again, is inconsistent in how they interpreted the previous calculation, and so that left a big hole in the legislation and the intent of what we tried to do. And what you have before you is hopefully the clarification we need in order to get the original intent of the legislation. So we ask for your support.